Alrighty, going live. Going live, going live, going live. Let's make sure we got the microphone all set on up, that the audio is coming through just perfectly fine. Where is. Huh, where. Why am I not hearing the audio? Uh oh. Am I. Am I muted? No, I'm not muted. I think. Let's see here. Okay, there we are. It was me. It was me on my end. I couldn't hear myself. Oh, what a horrible thing. So I'm not that. I am not that vain of a person usually. All right. Already starting off the stream here with a question, and as we're waiting for Scoot to come and join in, I will quickly answer. So, what is my opinion about Demon Slayer's theme about the loss of humanity? I really enjoy. This is how I'm going to approach this question. I really enjoy how Demon Slayer is able to take just some of the most despicable kinds of monsters and characters and just make them human, because I mean we already understand that the demons have lost a certain amount of humanity by receiving Muzan's blood, and how that corrupts and twists them, how it subjects them to his will, at least when it's done his way. Because the name of the one demon who I can't, his name is eluding me. Oh, this is kind of embarrassing right there. Because there's the one demon. Oh dang! I know I can't say. I actually can't say his name because that would be massive spoilers for anyone who hasn't read the manga. Let's just say that there are some demons who haven't lost their humanity. They didn't need to go through the same process, same corruptive process that Muzan put the other ones through. So as a result, there are those demons that retain their humanity. So it's about the process that transforms them into a demon, that really strips away what it means to be human. And what I love about Demon Slayer is how for so many of these enemies, you get to see that human aspect still to them. Yes, they're monsters, but holy cow, as you get to learn more about them, as you see them in action, and you get to see some of their backstories and the likes, you get to see how they feel fear, they feel love, they have ambition, and those are more very human qualities. But it is the process that they've undergone that has transformed something that is so human, so personal, so beautiful, and just mutated it into this monster. And that's actually, I think, a pretty good message that you can take in many different directions as a viewer. If you want to like have a deeper discussion about it, you can say, can't any of us kind of become demons by by kind of going further and deeper than we probably should with a certain aspect of ourselves? The Hashira could easily be be typified in many ways as demons themselves, considering what kinds of powers they have, how some of them have kind of become obsessed with certain ideals that have allowed them to kind of hone their strength and their talent. But they themselves are so close to kind of becoming the same things that they have fought against, which is after the training arc, when we actually start getting to the final battles of Demon Slayer, that's one of the coolest things, is the difference that we finally get to see between the upper pillars and the Hashira, what really sets them apart in terms of humanity. Uh, so there is a very deep conversation to be had there. I wouldn't say though that it's necessarily a front and center idea of Demon Slayer, but it is something that is very present, and 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 it's definitely there for the fans and for the viewers and for the readers to really engage in and have conversations about. And then another question right here. I have another question. What is your opinion about the similarity between vampires and demons from Demon Slayer? Ooh, okay then. You know what? That actually kind of depends on the type of vampire and the variety of vampire that you're dealing with. So, there's your typical blood-sucking vampire, which at face value is very similar to how the demons of Demon Slayer must consume humans in order to survive, gain energy, continue to live. If they don't, they'll just wither away. And so at its face value, there is an immediate similarity between them. However, once you actually start diving deeper into the lore of various vampires, so like let's say you go like really deep Eastern European vampires, that's when you start delving more into the fact that they're vengeful kind of spirits. They are truly the undead. They don't necessarily need to eat people or drink blood to sustain themselves. What sustains them is the curse or the hatred that brought them back out of the grave. You then have our more romanticized vampires. The ones who are supposed to be the descendants of Lucifer or Cain, whichever kind of, or not of Lucifer or Cain, but either of Cain or Judas Iscariot, depending on what kind of lore you wish to go with. Those vampires are also kind of driven by the fact that they're cursed by God. They can't die, and so they've become creatures that take pleasure in stealing beauty, stealing life. These are beings that represent the soullessness of the greatest sinners, and so those are the other kinds of vampires. And then we got the sparkling vampires. The vampire, and that's not just the vampires from Twilight, but basically the vampires that exist to be sexy and alluring. Those kinds of vampires, whether they be the descendants of cursed individuals, undead brought back to life through curses or through hatred, or the embodiment of the sexy, lusty vampire. Those vampires, I would say, are very different from how Demon Slayer presents demons, who are individuals who are effectively cursed thanks to Muzan's blood, have become these monsters who, yes, they need blood and flesh in order to subsist, but what kind of gives them purpose beyond that is that some of them want to hone skills, they want to become stronger. Maybe there's something that they wish to discover. In Muzan's case, he doesn't want to die. In order for them to not just simply become beasts, like what we see the early demons being in the first season, they need to have some sort of goal that they're aiming for, and that's very individual. And again, that's one of the things that lends itself to each demon potentially being presented with a very human side to them. So right here, what is your opinion? Tsukihime vampires, demons from Demon Slayer, a lot of influence from Japan's mythology. Well, of course, because this is a story that comes out of Japan. Of course, it's going to have a lot of influence from Japanese mythology. I honestly, I'm drawing a blank on Tsukihime vampires, so I can't comment on that. Sorry. I'd have to look up and do a little bit of research before I could give you any sort of answer there. But as we get started, welcome to everyone who is here. So for today, what we're going to be doing, at least when Scott pops in around, he's running a little bit late, we will be going over some of the anime that are coming out this season both the returning and the new. And for the new anime, Scott and I, if you haven't seen us do this before, we are going to give our opinions of the new anime coming out based on what we've read from their available manga. And based on what we've read from the first 5 chapters or so of their manga, we will give you our opinion of them, our writer's insights, and say whether or not we think that this might be a show that is worth your time to watch. And then from there, yeah, you can make your own decision, and hopefully you then have a good time watching some fantastic anime this season, because there is quite a bit of good stuff. So let's see here. Got another question. What is your opinion about My Hero Academia? I really like My Hero Academia. I will be honest, I haven't kept up with the anime as much as I should have, but I am completely caught up with the manga. I am right up there. I've read the latest chapter. I even reread it today, just to make sure that I knew kind of where we were in relation to this upcoming season, because I don't know if it's actually been said or not that this would be the last season, but I believe this is going to be the last season, and I don't know if they're going to end it in the season or if they're going to end it with a movie. Because we are at that point in My Hero Academia. We have effectively caught up with the manga. And the manga is in its closing chapters. And I do like it. I know that a lot of people fell out of love with My Hero Academia around the time of the war arc. And already there were people who were kind of pushing back against it at that time, in part because it became so popular so quickly. And for so many different stories and shows, when something becomes super popular super fast, immediately there's a pushback, and people are like, oh, it's not that good, it sucks, it's people don't understand what they're watching right here, it's awful. So I mean, you get that. A lot of people were also upset that Deku started getting all of these other superpowers, which I'm just going to say, if you are going up against a character like All for One, and your only superpower is that you punch real good, I would not believe that you could defeat that kind of a villain with just superhuman punching. Yeah, sure, All Might did beat him to a bloody pulp. However, as we also learn from All Might's own story, All Might nearly died in the process, plus All for One, with all of his extra quirks, circumvented death and found a way to continue living on. So if you're going to beat a guy who is that stinking powerful, you need to have a superhero who can match All for One in that same game of multiple quirks. It honestly makes sense. And so I like that Deku started getting more powers, and I like how he went on that journey to get all of those extra powers. And I really like how all of those powers and the personalities attached to them are becoming very relevant at this point in the manga. So I think that a lot of the things that people kind of poke at, saying that this is all really bad, I personally think it's a credit to the story. It's well thought out. Sure, Deku is definitely not the greatest shonen protagonist of all time, and yes, shipping did hurt My Hero Academia. It really did. One of my nieces, who loves My Hero Academia, basically got kicked out of the fandom by toxic shippers who were upset that she didn't like their various Bakugo ships, but she just said, I like Bakugo. He doesn't need to be romantically involved with anyone. And her so-called friends within the community kicked her out. They wouldn't talk to her anymore, and they would berate her and tease her and abuse her online because she wouldn't support their ships. So yeah, toxic shipping definitely brought My Hero Academia down in a lot of people's opinions. And sure, Deku again isn't the greatest protagonist of all time. I still really like him, but I feel like My Hero Academia has gotten recently the short end of the stick on no fault of its own. It's just how people have reacted towards it. So that's my opinion. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it all wraps up. And if you're wondering, yes, since I brought up shipping, I actually do have my own favorite ship. That would be Kirishima and Mina. I think that they actually work really well together. That ship probably won't sail, and it doesn't matter. Hey there, Ryan. Welcome. Oh, in terms of shipping, ISO's here to say Envy versus Newsy. Oh, yes, may that ship battle long endure. Because I mean, hey, I've made some videos that have done really well because of that shipping war. But then it also got that other question right here. What is your opinion about Sukuna? Are we talking about the villain there? Are we talking about the villain from Jujutsu Kaisen? Because if so, if this is indeed the Sukuna that I'm thinking of, I like him. He is an over-the-top villain. I love over-the-top villains. I love over-the-top, overpowered villains. I think those guys are a whole lot of fun. Do I think that the manga has stretched out the final battle way too long? Yes. 100% yes. Wow. How long has it been going on now? About a year? I have to double check. I think that the so-called final battle has been going on now for about a year, and we're still nowhere near the end. And I'm all for action. I love writing action. I love writing battles. But as someone who has attempted to do like what Brandon Sanderson and Robert Jordan did in The Wheel of Time, which is to have a book where 50% of it is one massive battle, if you are going to do something like that in your story, your battle must have mile markers that people can stop and rest at and be like, okay, we've kind of gotten to a lull in the battle. The battle's still happening, but I can stop right here, take a rest, gather up my energy, and tackle the story again, because action is exhausting. That's one of the things that that Dan Brown actually does very well with his novels. His novels are so action-packed. It's movement, 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 but he always gives you chapters that break up the action for just 5 to 10 pages, 10 pages maximum, that allows you to rest and to breathe as the reader, collect your wits, learn where you're going next, and then you're back on the trail of action again. If you are going to write a massive battle like what Jujutsu Kaisen currently has going on, that battle needs to have mile markers that allow the readers to rest. You don't have to stop the battle, you just have to pace it. And that is something that unfortunately Jujutsu Kaisen has not been very good at. So that's my opinion right there. I do love the story, I do like the characters, but Sukuna is the king of curses, so of course he'll be hard to beat him, and I do agree. And I don't mind if the final battle is going to take a whole year or more to get through, but it does need to be broken up better. I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, who is fighting again? Why are we here? What are their powers again? And the manga actually has to remind you. When the manga has to constantly be reminding you of what a person's power set is in the middle of like the final battle, that's where you've probably gone maybe a little too far without properly setting things up. So that'll be something that when Jujutsu Kaisen wraps up, I'll be able to reply to that a whole lot better. But welcome to a couple more people who've popped on in. Thank you that you could. We're glad that you guys could join us tonight for talking about the upcoming anime of this spring. We're still waiting for Scott to show up. So as we're waiting for Scott to show up, let me take some time to talk about some of the anime that we've had so far this season. And wow. We were eating good this season. The Apothecary Diaries, the second half, was just so dang good. I know that I released the video way too late, or in some people's cases very early today, looking at the last episode. But man, the Apothecary Diaries just absolutely hit it out of the ballpark with animation, with phenomenal characters, the writing, the romances, the mysteries, everything. It is such a good story. Holy cow. If you haven't yet seen the Apothecary Diaries, you definitely got to check it out. And I'm definitely going to hold myself to it that I will be doing a video on the politics of the Rear Palace, because that is absolutely fascinating. One of the things that actually makes it very fascinating is that the politics of the Rear Palace don't have an immediate effect on the Imperial Palace in terms of what kinds of laws are made or what kinds of policies are enacted, but it is all about the expectation for what will be the continuing lineage of the imperial family. The imperial family must endure. And if it doesn't, who takes over? Because that's so much power. You have this massive kingdom with a huge bureaucracy, and it all centers on an emperor who is supposed to make sure that everything runs like a well-oiled machine. The bureaucracy basically controls the empire, but the one who controls the bureaucracy is the emperor. And so everyone wants to be close to the emperor. The concubines are chosen based on what kinds of families have the influence necessary to get close to the emperor, and which families, of course, want to have a shot at taking the throne, either through their children or in the case of the emperor's death. So there is a ton of politics playing behind the scenes, and the women who are a part of that, they all get to have their own say, and it gives them a great amount of autonomy, which is again just something really, really cool to see. So it'll definitely be interesting to discuss that in its own special video. Let's see here. We got E. Hellstrom, E. Hellstrom, who has joined us. Hello. And yes, this was indeed a great season. I have one more episode to watch for Villainous Level 99. I enjoyed it. And I laughed. Like its animation was like par, maybe subpar. It definitely relied way too much on CGI for my taste. But man, the characters were great. The story was funny, and I was not expecting us to have a male protagonist get so bold as to give the heroine a kiss before the end of the series. Wow, I color me impressed, because it just goes against the norm. So that was great. I so wish that the Witch and the Beast had a better budget for its animation. And I mean, that's something I think all the animation studios wish for. If only we had a better budget, if only we had more people to work on this, because it is such a great story. It is a great fantasy horror with some fantastic action scenes, some great characters, and there are points in the anime where you can tell like they managed to just capture the feel of the manga. They were on point. But there's also all these other parts where it just feels super clunky, which is a shame, because it detracts just slightly from the story. But like the story itself, again, is just so good, in my opinion, especially if you're looking for fantasy horror. Yeah, Rio was very funny looking with the CGI. Yeah, man. I love dragons, and I love it when dragons are depicted well. With like for instance, Frieren Beyond Journey's End, the dragon that Stark fights is just as such a well animated dragon. I would love to see more of that done in anime, or just in animation in general, because dragons have always been treated as like very clunky creatures, and most shows or movies that have depicted dragons actually do their best to limit how much of the dragon you see on screen, because dragons are traditionally very difficult to animate. But I think we've gotten to the point now where animators are way more confident, have way more skill behind them, and the money and even the digital means to help enhance how they draw, so that way you can capture the fluid movements of a live dragon and just capture all of those fantastical elements. So yeah, seeing a CGI Ryu is just like, oh, that's kind of disappointing, especially then when you can then look at Friren's dragon, the red dragon, and be like, oh, that's gorgeous, that is beautiful. and speaking of Frieren, wow, just what a fantastic show and story. That's another video that I will be doing hopefully soon, looking at how it is a modern it's a modern classic. Now then, modern classic is a little bit of a heavy term, because what is really a modern classic? And it's true, you don't know what's going to be a classic until years after it's been released. But as of right now, Frieren is just such a beloved series. A lot of people have just absolutely adored it. The characters are amazing. And even like when I've shared the story to other people without actually showing it to them, they're just like, wow, that's an incredible story. Like, I'd love to watch it. I'd love to read it. So, man, so good. Ryan Phillips, so many indie shows I've been following have been working with shoestring budgets, often leading to disappointingly few episodes, which in turn often causes rushed pacing. It happened to Has Been Hotel, and I fear for Lackadaisy. It's true. It's true that with shoestring budgets, it can lead to it can lead to bad decisions being made, because you must work within the limitations of your budgets. Like, you can't break that without hurting your production in the long run. With Lackadaisy, the interesting thing for Lackadaisy is that they went all in to make that amazing pilot episode, and the budget that they asked for, which unfortunately, like, even though, like, I actually tried to contribute to the Kickstarter, but something went wrong and my money never got to them, and that was disappointing. But I mean, good on them. They hit one of their high mark goals. So we are getting the full season. We're just not getting the Blu-ray editions. Boo. From what they have said, they are definitely going to be focusing on making shorter, more condensed episodes that tell the story quickly and efficiently. And I think that's good, because if you can tell a good story, even if it is a little bit short, then there's a good chance that they can then market that idea to investors, and then have the chance to actually get picked up by a production studio. That's right now what's being done by Olin Rogers and his current project, Godspeed. He's trying to show just how good Godspeed can be, even if it's only like 8 episodes long, which really wasn't what he was hoping for. But he's trying to show investors and producers, hey, the show is great. It's got a fan base. People will watch it. And if you just give us the chance to tell a really good first season, then we can talk about a second season. So that might be what ends up being the case for Lackadaisy. When it comes to Has Been Hotel has had its chance. It is getting a second season. I think they even said that they're working on a third season for Has Been Hotel, if I heard that correctly. And Has Been Hotel still has to work within a budget. There's no getting around that. And I think that maybe one of the things that held back Has Been Hotel from being quite what people hoped it would be is actually twofold. I think that Visipop was working with older scripts that might not have been as updated as they probably should have been. That's just a guess on my part. I don't know. It's just a guess on my part. Because people are like, some of these jokes or some of these ideas feel a little bit outdated, or they don't feel like they quite grew with the story. And that's something you can definitely come across when a script isn't up to date with what you want to do. And then also, she was working with A24 Studios. She wasn't working with her own in-house people. So, so transferring a project on over to another studio can easily lead to things not translating over as well as you would hope. A good anime example of this would be Please Don't Tease Me, Miss Nagatoro. The first season, which was made with a complete different studio, is just on another level of quality. Holy dang, they went so hard with the animation, with the music, with the sound effects, everything. It's just gorgeous. Second season is still a whole lot of fun, but it's nowhere near the same production value. An even worse example actually would be One Punch Man. First season of One Punch Man is a classic. There is no beating how good One Punch Man season 1 is. It is just, that's peak anime. Second season of One Punch Man completely fell off a cliff because it just did not have the production value there. Went to a completely different studio. We was not prepared for doing something as over the top and amazing as One Punch Man. So coming back to it right here, maybe time will tell. Yeah, time will tell about modern classics indeed. Although, and Ryan says, although some have risen to the challenge so far, Murder Drones has felt great to watch despite a clearly fast pace and only 8 episodes in the season. And that's true. Yeah, Murder Drones has moved along really fast. But like when we compare quality of the pilot episode to even just the trailer for episode 7, it is incredible to see how they have grown and improved from episode to episode. And ISO says, and even the first episode was good. I have high hopes for Godspeed. I have high hopes as well. I always make sure to catch up on all of Olin Rogers' updates to let people know what's going on with the show, how it's being received, that he's working with artists and the likes. Because I want to see Godspeed go somewhere, because I thought that was a very powerful first episode. I also want to see him get his revenge on Hollywood for screwing him over with Final Space, because Godspeed is kind of like his FU to Hollywood. And Olin Rogers, bless that man, he needs a real win. That guy, because I mean, he lost his show. His cat got killed by the next door neighbor. A freak tornado took out his store at home, and then he was unceremoniously booted from Hollywood, all within a year. And he's just such a good, wholesome guy. I wish only the best for Olin Rogers. I really want to see him succeed. Ryan says, Hazbin Hotel felt like it had too much packed into its first season. You never got to sit and enjoy the characters introduced or the couple of plot lines it tried to jump between. And I agree with that. Sometimes you just pack way too much into that first season because you're so desperate to get through as much material as possible, because you don't know if you're going to get a second season. That's one of the reasons why I believe that the Owl House, like the second half of season 1 of the Owl House, went kind of too fast in a couple of areas, especially where Amity was concerned. I really felt like Amity went from like the bully to the friend to the crush too quick. And the reason why that happened was basically because Dana Terrace understood that there was a very good chance, which it turned out to be the case, that Disney was going to give her show the axe. And so she was trying to get through everything that she could, everything that she had planned as fast as possible. And while she got what she wanted in the first season, the second half of the first season does feel a little rushed. So there's that. Question right here. What is your opinion about the magic system in Jujutsu Kaisen? I enjoyed the magic system of Jujutsu Kaisen, and I also really like how applicable it can be in various scenarios, how different powers can be mixed and matched, how there's actual strategy. I think it's good. One of the problems, though, that Jujutsu Kaisen runs into later on in the manga is that as we start getting so many different as we start getting just so many different mages, so many sorcerers, there's just too many unique powers to really make heads or tails of. And that's something that I've seen even from people who have actually followed the series for longer than I have, that they're like, wait a second, I need to refresh myself. Who am I dealing with here? What is their power? Okay, now I got it. So unique powers is great. I love seeing characters with unique powers. The problem with Jujutsu Kaisen is that by the end, there's so many characters all with their own unique abilities that it almost becomes over the top. Ryan says, I finished Please Don't Tease Me, Miss Nagatoro just the other day, and I absolutely loved it. Truly a comfort show for me. The ending felt a little weak, in my opinion, to early story beats. And Ryan, I will agree with you. The way that the second season ended was weak. It was weak compared to how the first season ended. And that's difficult. I don't know if you've read up completely on the manga, because man, where the manga ends up later on, like some of the really heavy beats are just perfection. They hit so well. And I think that Please Don't Tease Me, Miss Nagatoro, the anime, suffers a little from its pacing. How much they decided to either expand or condense, and they also shuffled around some of the little side stories. That definitely contributed to the second season not having as much strength as the first season, because the first season actually ends with a side chapter that comes very early on in the manga, where Nagatoro teases Senpai by kissing him on the cheek, and that's just a moment of teasing in the manga. It doesn't have much significance other than to be all like, okay, yeah, this girl does like him. We get it. But in the anime, by them putting it as the last episode, may it just like hammered everything home by the end of the first season. It was very good. Indie shows, very rushed. Indie shows can be very rushed. That all kind of depends. We'll see with Murder Drones, how Murder Drones concludes with its first season, whether that's the end of the series or just the end of the first season. We're going to get a second season. That way, then we can really see how the pacing overall works out. I like Lackadaisy. Lackadaisy is a story that could go really fast. I've read all of the available comic, and you could easily put all of the available comic into one season of Lackadaisy, and it would not feel rushed, in my opinion. Just as long as you get all the necessary story beats into there. Ryan, mostly I was just glad. Mostly I was not glad. Mostly I was sad to see it end. Luckily, I can read the manga to have more of that story. Oh yes, and there's so much more amazing story. I just caught up with the manga's most recent chapter today, and I was grinning ear to ear. So good, so good. RO83RT. The sad thing about has been criticism of having too much is Vivi did seemingly streamline a lot. Baxter was cut in favor of Serpentius, and Mimsy barely shows up. Yeah, I did hear that. I wasn't as well in tune with a lot of the side characters and a lot of the side stuff. Oh, Scooty's here. Yay! Hold on a sec here. Hold on, guys. Let me come on. Let me let you on in. Let's see here. Where do I go? This is rather embarrassing, because I know I've given you the talking to you, LaRoche. I know. Let's see here. Where come on, the studio is open. The invites. There's the opening up the instructions for guests. Come on. Yeah, you need to be able to get into StreamYard. All right, Scott, Scott you should have already have opened up StreamYard by now. Where on earth are you? Aha, no. Get back there. Don't want that. Ah, there you are. Add you to the stage. All right, sorry about that, Scott. That was, yeah, we got there eventually. That was a little confusing. All right.
I'm just glad to be here and not at work.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here as well. Oh boy. Yeah, getting away from work. So coming back real quick to what you said right there, RO88, 83 RT. Man, I am tripping over my words tonight. So I wasn't as well versed with a lot of the side characters and a lot of the background characters that VisiPop had been developing for Has Been Hotel. But I saw that. I saw a lot of people really upset, for instance, about how Mimsy barely shows up, especially because, if I recall correctly, Mimsy was actually supposed to be in a relationship with Alistair in the original version, which a lot of people are like, wait, what? Which confused me, because I remember when I was introduced to Has Been Hotel, like shortly after it came out, people were all like, oh, Alistair's supposed to be asexual. He's not supposed to be in any sort of relationship with anyone because he's just pure chaos. And I love Alistair that way. I love my chaotic, flamboyant demon. But yes, definitely a lot of things are streamlined. And I would be fascinated to know what kinds of conversations VisiPop had with A24 Studios about like what was allowed, what was the budget, what was the episode count. I love Netflix, but I hate the fact that Netflix has made it now acceptable to get away with doing 6 to 10 episodes for a season, and that 12 episodes is like us being greedy. No. Yeah, it's lazy. 22 to 24 episodes a season.
Well, and I'm fine with just...
Sorry, Scott, what were you saying?
No. Well, and I'm fine with just 13 episodes a season, but it feels so like lackluster, like they're not able to put the time into it necessarily to full on flesh out the story. I mean, you can tell that kind of story in 10 episodes, but you also have less time to do it in, so you have to get more creative with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then just sometimes things just get cut. So Hannah, welcome. Hey, it's okay. It's okay if you're late because we've just been doing a recap. We haven't even gotten to the meat of the matter yet, so you're just fine.
Lars unfortunately was waiting for me to stop being like Nate and actually get onto the stream. So I'm sorry about holding everything up.
You were having a life and dinner.
Yes. So, I do think the one. I do think the one comment about the Jujutsu Kaisen magic system is pretty interesting, though, just because I feel like a lot of anime does that, where they have a magic system, but it's so unique to every individual character, it's hard to pinpoint like what the actual magic system is sometimes. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, you've got stuff like Fairy Tail, you've got Jujutsu Kaisen, you've got Black Clover. Like, they all have definite magic systems, but, like, what is the actual magic system when you're looking at every single person's individual, very different power?
Yeah. So... a couple of other questions. Right here. So starting first with Ryan. So Lackadaisy in just one season, despite man, tripping again. Despite the story of the comic only showing around a month at a time, it has such incredible depth. I could hardly imagine it being pulled off in one season. that is where Ryan, that is where visual storytelling really comes into play, because there is so much going on in the comics. But if you were to actually play read through the comics, you can actually run through it really, really fast. A lot of the detail as well that you get is just the background stuff, the actions of the characters, and that's something that a show can just do so well. That can take so much information and put it all into one scene. It could be overloading for some people, but it can be done. Do I want all of the existing comic to be done in one season? No, I wouldn't, because I love it too much. And also, you have this question, and Scott, you might have some insight into this because of your experience with Barnes and Noble. What is our opinion about the future of books?
I'm scared of what like the publishing and like what the book industry is becoming, honestly, because it's so powered by like social media anymore that it's hard for like new and original like concepts and ideas to get pushed into it. Like right now, really big thing is you got a lot of the Sarah J. Maas copies, which there's a lot of fans of Sarah J. Maas. There's a lot of fans of the of that kind of romantasy that's coming out, and it's starting to spread into like other types of books. It spreads into manga, it spreads into like middle grade and teen and like all of that kind of stuff. So we're really stuck with whatever's popular at the moment, and it's hard to find stuff outside of that unless you like really know how to look. That's kind of my thoughts. I don't think books are going to die out necessarily. I think people are going to be like trying to publish and putting stuff out. It's just it's just going to be kind of interesting to see where that goes. As for vampires, I think vampires are awesome, even though I don't normally read or watch stuff with vampires just because I don't like a lot of the over the top like melodrama that's involved with a lot of vampires. But I have read a few vampire things that I thought was actually really fun. There's a really goofy indie novel I read last year that was all about taxes and vampires, and it was just stupid and fun, but it was an enjoyable read. I think with vampires, every author
funny, unique things that can be done with vampires.
Yeah, well, and with Ryan there, Werewolves Over Vampires, I like both, but I feel like every author has to have their own unique spin on them. Otherwise, it's not as interesting anymore. I mean, there's a lot of like build up and like cultural knowledge we have on these like creatures already that have been built up, but I feel like there's so many ways you could like subvert and change that as you're like creating the story to make it unique. That's where the fun part of those is.
I agree. I agree. Vampires and werewolves are fine and dandy on their own. It's when you start getting creative and going against the grain, or just doing something unique, that you really then start bringing out the potential within those monsters. And as far as my opinion on books goes, I think books are here to stay, just because it is an industry that still makes money. There are people who still love to read. And one of the things I've begun to see is that as people have become more and more disillusioned with the potential of Hollywood, that there are people who are calling now to return to books. And so we'll see how that goes. But I do see people kind of returning to the books, especially as as Hollywood kind of crumbles under its own weight and under its dearth of creativity after like 10 years now of doing sequels, prequels, and remakes. People are sick and tired of it. They want something new. And all of the new stuff is to be found in books, which then means that people are going to have to return to reading to find where that next big thing is going to come from. But as you said, Scott, like it's now so determined by stuff like Book Talk, what is popular in the moment, which is so fickle, that it's going to take, I believe, the publishing industry to realize that just chasing what is fantastic and cool in the moment is going to, that has to be put aside. And people just need to return to looking for great stories. And there's all kinds of great stories that can be told in various genres. Ryan asks opinions on e-readers versus physical books. Whatever works for you. I get a headache when reading ebooks. If I read one for too long, I definitely prefer having a physical copy of a book. I love doing that.
But in different settings. I love having the portability of just having books. And though honestly, I read more fan fiction on my phone than books, but I like having the accessibility on my phone. So like if I'm on a break at work or if I'm just like hanging out somewhere, I can't just like pull a book out. But honestly, one of my favorite hobbies is it's literally just go outdoors somewhere, pull up a little camp chair next to a lake or under a tree somewhere and just read for a while. And it's just so relaxing, just nice and quiet out there, just me and the book. It's fun. I enjoy that. So it really depends on the situation, on what's going on. But let's
before we move on, because we did get a question right here, and I don't want Faison Ender or Fazon Ender, however you say the name, to feel that they're being left out. Why do you comment on a topic while acting like you're 100% certain is accurate and true, but follow up immediately with "I don't know, I'm assuming it"? I'm not exactly sure when I said that, but I will say this: that has been my mode of talking for years, and I don't even know where I picked that up from. Maybe if I'm to be really harsh on myself and be a critic of myself, maybe it goes back to my middle school and early high school days where I wanted to be friends with everyone before I realized that you can't be friends with everyone. And so when you're really wishy-washy, you're hoping that you'll appeal to everyone. Maybe that's where it comes from. Then again, there are also people who've told me, Lars, you missed your calling in life by not becoming a lawyer.
Okay. Lars,
so I guess that's where it comes from, but there's also other things, like when I'm talking about what could be happening behind the scenes, for instance, at age 24, that is all guesswork. Like I will be confident in my opinions and guesswork, but I don't 100% know because I'm not there. The only reason why I could say that this might be happening or may not be happening is because of my own experience as a creator, as an author, my own experience with trying to get into the film industry, because that was originally, like back when I graduated from high school, that was actually one of the big things I wanted to do. And then also, I love keeping up with Hollywood. I love getting into productions and all of that. And so I listen to a lot of podcasts that get into the nitty gritty about what's been happening. So yeah, that's where I'm able to bring up some of that knowledge and some of that guesswork, because I have either firsthand account knowledge or this is something I've heard about from other people. And so based on conjecture, I can start bringing things together to form an opinion. So there you have it.
All right. And I was just going to say, if you want some wild, like American high school prom stories, Lars has a video on the channel that has one of the wildest prom stories I've ever heard. And I would definitely recommend you try and look that up. Anyway, let's move on to the purpose of this video. This is our Camille's Harem sub podcast that we call Need for Weeb, where we do a manga review of anime that's coming out in the current season. And basically the setup for that, if you haven't heard it before, is we read through the first, usually around 5 chapters of the manga to get an idea of what the story is like and give us an idea of what we're going to be interested in the upcoming anime season. We also talk about like the returning anime and what we're excited about to see continued. And it usually ends up just being a fun time. Oh, there's the crazy prom story there.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's get started. Let's talk
about the crazy prom story.
Let's talk about some returning anime.
Let's see here. Where do we want to start?
Or did you already
on the list?
talk about
I will have to be swapping out. I have not talked about any reoccurring anime. I was only doing recaps and whatnot. I will have to swap out some videos as we go along because StreamYard can only handle so many videos in the queue at any one time. So as we go through, I'll be booting videos so that way we can get to all of them.
Okay. Well, let's start with Konosuba because I know I'm excited about this one. Konosuba is just always fun, and like it's particularly
is right here.
Yeah, it's particularly fun now.
That's not Konosuba.
Oh, it's particularly fun right now because there's so many different like isekai manga being turned into anime nowadays that it's fun to see a spoof on isekai doing as well as it does. I mean, it's a fun story. There's some super fun characters in the way they like interact with each other, is specifically the shenanigans that they end up causing. Always fun.
Yeah. I hope that we can get Nate to hop on and do some videos about Konosuba because he is the guy who has actually like read ahead and everything when it comes to Konosuba. He knows his stuff.
He really does.
And I agree with you, Scott. We need isekai that know how to make fun of isekai because we have such a glut of isekai that we need something that makes fun of it, that makes fun of the genre. Yeah. And Konosuba is the cure.
It's gotten to the point, honestly, and we'll talk about it later because there are a couple of isekai that we will be talking about for the upcoming season. It's gotten to the point where trying to figure out the differences between like a good isekai and a bad one right off the bat is hard because they all have a lot of the same elements. And so like you go right into into the start of it, and a lot of that is exposition. It's all introduction. And so it's hard to see what's going to be good and what's going to be bad right off the bat. I think some people will definitely like the ones that we're going to be talking about today. But I don't, at least in my personal opinion, they're not some of the greats, but I do know there are some really good ones coming out this year that I'm excited about. So
yeah, and I mean the new gate does have some potential, but one of the things that I do like about, for instance, like Konosuba and as has been brought up, ReZero, and Tanya the Evil, is that while you can definitely see some things that are like similar to video games and whatnot, they don't rely on we're in a world that acts like a video game. Like that's been so overdone. And what makes Konosuba and ReZero and likes really stick out is that you don't have those video game elements. It is a fantasy world that they've been pulled into.
Yeah. Yep. I like Tanya the Evil because it's not your typical fantasy world. It's like World War II era that has magic kind of idea, and it's fun.
Yeah. Oh man, good thing that real World War II didn't have magic. Otherwise, Operation Barbarossa would have made it all the way past Moscow.
Right. I do like with Konosuba specifically with this season, it's a continuation on what they were doing before. Because more recently they did have I think it was like a prequel anime that was talking about Megumin's life before she met the party.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fun, but I think where Konosuba excels is when it has all of the main cast together. Because all of that goofy stuff going on, it makes all the difference. Like, it's so much more funny when they're all there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Because
I
they
am
all play,
tired of
because they
chat
they
windows.
play off each other and they feed off each other.
Yep, very much so. All right, let's move on to
All right.
Demon Slayer, which I'm excited. I think we're gonna
I'm so excited for Demon Slayer.
I have two, but from the sounds of it, it's the Hashira training arc, and this is all gonna be set up for something big. I'm hoping coming in the future
for the big stuff.
for the big stuff. I've talked with like Lars and Camille and Nate before. I am convinced Demon Slayer needs to do a 3-part movie series for the finale because there's too much going on, but it's all happening at the same time. So having it in a movie experience would be best, in my opinion.
I agree. I definitely agree with you, especially because there's certain fights, and again, I'm not going to give any spoilers right here, but there are certain fights where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like you need to get this all in one go. If you don't get it all in one go,
yeah, you can't drag it out.
Yeah,
you have to keep it going. Though I'm worried it'll almost do what like the Into the Spider-Verse movies are trying to do, where like you end up with a serious was it cliffhanger between like everything that's going on, and then you have to wait a whole year. That drives me nuts. I think they need to have it just a tad closer, in my opinion.
Yeah. UFO table, you can only work on this from now on. You can't do anything else. A quick thing right here. So it's a question: do you agree or not Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen have the same themes of loneliness, death, loss of humanity, etc.? I will say this: the themes are there in both shows, but they play out differently, and I think that that's a good thing. That they don't exactly do it the same way. That's my response.
I think a lot of that is it's a very like powerful way to pull people in. Like everybody deals with loneliness, everybody worries about death. We see like accidents and natural disasters happening all the time, so like loss of life, it's something that we're concerned about. I mean, we feel bad for the people are hurt in those kind of situations, and so it's like as a writer, as a creator, you can use those themes, pull them in, and use them to kind of one, increase the stakes for like your characters, but also like pull in the reader's emotions a lot of the time. And I think it both in Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen, that's I don't think it's all of what pulls people into those stories, but I think it is definitely part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I quickly want to address this right here, Ryan. The video game theme worked in the new Jumanji movies, though. It did, and I think that was a good, bold move. However, at the same time, I feel like they actually hampered themselves, and I'll say why. Because the board game Jumanji is nuts all on its own. I remember my family actually bought the old board game inspired by the movie, and the old board game is freaky. It's about as freaky as the movie, just without the monsters coming around and trying to kill you each turn. But there are so many other horrors in that board game that could have been drawn on that I think that would have actually worked out really well. Would have been a sequel that involved the board game one more time, leading then to whoever had it being like, okay, screw it, we're getting rid of this thing for good. And they really go out of their way to try to get rid of the board game. So that way then, as we then see in Welcome to the Jungle, the game desires to pull people in. And so because whoever played the game last time in the sequel really did their best to like bury and destroy the game for good, that it then imposes itself upon a video game console, opening itself up to new possibilities and potential. And then you could then have that fun switch to the more goofy, action-packed version of Jumanji, which again worked out really well. And because it is now a video game, you can do all different kinds of things with it. But I do feel like they kind of missed an opportunity of not going back to the original board game one more time for a good horror romp. That's my opinion. I would do it. I would write that movie. All right. Let's see here. Shall we then jump on, Scott, over to, let's see what we got next on our list right here. To slime. That time I got reincarnated as a slime.
This one's one I've been following since long before the anime came out, and I think it's a fun one. I am worried that the power creep is really going to affect this one, because now that we're getting into like the higher seasons, into everything's just going to keep going up and up and up. And from like looking ahead, I know where it's going to end, but can you keep up the same like character shenanigans? Can you keep up the same kind of feel to the story that it has had up to this point? That's my concern with this anime specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a problem with overpowered characters. As someone who loves overpowered characters and stories about just insane magical abilities and the likes, like if you want to make something go for a long time, you need to have proportional challenges that you can live up to. So like I mean, yay me! I'm going to compare my works against the very popular and beloved That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. But my flagship series, The Legend of 10 Lords, has so many overpowered characters. Scott knows this.
I do,
and that is meant and some of those characters are meant to go beyond that book series into future stories that go far beyond those 6 books. And one of the things that I've been conscientious of is making sure that further down the line that there are problems and villains that you can't just steamroller your way through. And those have been characters that have been in the planning for a very long time. I'll drop this name right here, Scala Condur. I don't know if you remember that name.
I do,
Scott, because I haven't brought him up in a while. But like that is one villain where I'm just like, that is a villain that I have made sure exists to challenge some of my OP characters way down the line, because they do become so powerful by the end of the Legend of the 10 Lords. You're like, they can defeat anything. Au contraire, wait until you meet a villain who has a lot of power, but what makes him terrifying is how he has the intelligence to utilize that power.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes him a threat.
Yeah,
because like you can have like a nuclear warhead, and you can knock out a nuclear warhead if you just know what to do. So that's how you can that's how you can approach an OP power scaling situation.
I think another way to do it, and it just adds a bit more like context and like interest to the whole story, and it's something that this story does, but like also One Punch Man does, is it's not all about the fights. It's not all about the like the crazy power battles and everything. It has a lot to do with like the characters and the community that's being built around these characters. And I think it's very important to have that nuance there with all of it together.
Yeah.
And I think
yep.
Keep getting pulled back to it in the chat.
You need to have that nuance.
But I think Jujutsu Kaisen succeeds at that as well. And I think that's part of the reason it's so popular at the moment, is people really love like the crazy power system, but they also really love the characters as well.
Yeah. No, you are definitely there for the characters with Jujutsu Kaisen. Because there have been plenty of other stories that have had amazing magic systems and cool battles and whatnot. But you're there because you love these characters, and Jujutsu Kaisen does a good job of building up those characters. That way, you enjoy them enough, you love them enough, and root for them enough that you're willing to sit through that ridiculously long battle at the end.
Yeah. I was thinking about this the other day. You get so many anime with like over the top battle sequences that they have to have some way to distinguish themselves outside of that anymore. Because if it's just the straight battle after battle after battle, it gets really boring. Honestly, that's kind of why I ended up dropping that Shangri-La Frontier like review series I was doing not too long ago, just because that's all it was. That's all it was. I mean, I liked the manga, I liked reading the manga, but like going back into the anime every single time just to watch another battle, it gets boring because that's all it was.
Yeah, you do have to balance out action with other things, and it's one of the I'll make a seemingly odd comparison, but Villainous Level 99. I love how Villainous Level 99 comes out of the gates like swinging and hits you with like some big girl boss moments and some hilarious reveals and some over the top like completions of battles or whatnot. But then it slows down and it does become more about the characters. And so that way then it builds up the tension, it builds up the stakes and the drama leading to whatever conflict comes next. So that way you care.
Then we have Mushoku Tensei, Jobless Reincarnation, which I am so far behind on. I have no idea what's going on anymore when I see any clips from that show. I feel kind of bad about it because I actually really liked where it was going there for a while, but then I stopped.
Yeah, I know where we are at in the story. Man, I one of these days I will definitely have to do my comparison of Faraway Paladin to Jobless Reincarnation, because I feel like Faraway Paladin, at least for me, Lars speaking personally right here, Faraway Paladin definitely does the job of redeeming a scumbag way better, and I like how it does that without having to have a character be all like, I am horrible with relationships, so I'm going to get fixed by getting into a relationship, is where we're going. Like, I've read this part of the story, and I'm like, I like it, but I don't like it at the same time. In fact, actually, like, all of my senses, like, as someone who has dedicated himself to, like, advocating for healthy relationships in fiction, it's so hard for me to really get behind this. As cute as it is and as fulfilling as it is, there's so many red flags. and I know a lot of people will disagree with me about that, but that's where I am, and it's why I feel like Faraway Paladin does a better job, because it's like I don't need romance to save a person. I just need a person to actually confront what makes them scummy, and do that in their own personal way. So this is going to be a very popular core this season. A lot of people have definitely been looking forward to this particular arc, and it is going to be beautiful. A lot of people are going to be making all kinds of videos about how romantic this is. I will not be one of them.
Fair. And then we've got My Hero Academia, another one I'm super behind on in both the manga and the anime, unfortunately. And I feel guilty about that because I was actually enjoying that story, but I honestly don't know where it's gone after the war arc. But
we are in the final.
I know
arc.
There's. Oh, really? I know there's still a lot of people excited.
Yes, this is the final arc. I think that the I will be interested in seeing which one ends first, the anime or the manga, because the manga is in the final chapters effectively, and everything that's being shown right here on the screen is in the last arc.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, maybe once it's actually done, I'll have to just sit down and binge all of it.
And just binge it all. Yeah. So this was a discussion before you got on, like what's my opinion on My Hero, and I love My Hero. I have not been as up to date with the anime as I have been with manga. I'm completely caught up with the manga, not caught up with the anime. And I'm actually really happy that the anime is at this point right now, because I've wanted to have the footage to actually talk about the war arc, because the war arc has a really bad rep in the fan base. And I think that's in part because the fan base doesn't actually appreciate what goes into a good war. Because it's actually really well written. It's got great strategy, great sacrifice, great stakes, winners and losers on both sides. But people, that was not what people were expecting. It's not what they wanted, and so they got really upset when the war arc basically wasn't the Bleach war arc, as I think what people were hoping for, something like Bleach or Naruto, and instead the war arc is just all over the place, insanity.
Yeah. I need to jump right back into that, and I probably need to just start over from the start of the war arc to get all of the details right before I head forward. I gotta figure out what chapter that starts at, though. I think that's one of the catches there.
And I love the vigilante arc that gets kicked off after the war arc, which I know a lot of other people are like, that completely destroyed Deku's character. I'm like, no, that enhances Deku's character. The vigilante Deku is, in my opinion, best Deku.
Ooh, okay. And then one of my favorite anime, just because and I've probably mentioned it before, I'm super into outdoorsy stuff, more like researching that kind of stuff, because that's actually what my degree is in. But Yuta Camp, it's just so much fun. It's all character driven. It's all kind of fun. Let's have fun, go outdoors and camp. And I think, and it's definitely one of those anime that's pushed by Japan to bring people into a specific hobby or drive them to specific locations. And there's quite a few different anime that do that. One of the most noticeable one is the stairway in the anime Your Name. It's a big tourist destination for anime fans anymore. They love going to that spot in Tokyo just because of that. So and this it's not necessarily specific to a location, but it's more like people watch this, makes them want to go camping. I watch this and I want to go camping. So that's why I have fun with that one. And I'm excited that they're continuing the story there with it.
So I mean, the season seems to be happening in the fall. I love the fall. Fall's my favorite. It's my favorite time of the year. Camping during the fall, you better be packing warm, because otherwise you're in for a miserable time.
And a lot of the story, especially like the first season and like first part of the second season, it's during the winter. It's even colder. And just kind of it's something Japan does. The anime studio will get funding from that specific, like, either town or like a group trying to push something like camping or different sports. Even you get to see a lot of that as well, and it's just to bring people into those hobbies or take them to a place. There's oh crap, what's it called? Sakura Kingdom. Love that anime. It's really fun. Nope, not Sakura Kingdom. I can't remember the name. I know it has Sakura in it though. But it's literally just a big ad for people to go to this one specific town. But you're really just having fun watching these goofy anime characters the entire time. And that's what I think is fun. Just because anime studios, they have
would be a lot.
And there are anime about having a family and having a lot of children. I've seen a lot of manga specifically pushing that kind of thing.
That's what Spy Family's there for.
I think Spy Family actually is part of that. I think so. And I think Japan really needs to push more of that. But they also have other cultural issues going on, like societal issues going on, that make it really hard for people to meet and for them to have families. Specifically their
that's actually
work and school cultures.
That's actually something that I was surprised was referenced in one of the other anime that we're going to be talking about, The Fable. When I was reading the manga, I was like, oh, I was not expecting references to this. Like just like veiled references to the toxic work culture and how people don't actually meet each other very often. And I was just like, I was not expecting that. Wow.
All right, so let's dive into.
I was going to say so before we move on. I was going to say, my niece really got really interested in the idea of hiking across Japan, because when she went to go visit in Japan, she came across this large group of elderly people who are hiking their way from city to city. And she's like, that sounds really cool. I want to do that. I'm like, that actually does sound really cool. There's hiking through rural areas of Japan to getting to place, because one of the best experiences that I had when we went on over there was just going out into the boonies. It was so beautiful out there.
Yeah. So I've read a couple of books of people that have done that in varying ways. What was it? There was one guy that did it back in the 90s, and he went from like the very bottom part of Japan all the way to the northernmost point, and just hiked the entire way. And it was actually a very inspiring story. Had its ups and downs, but the thing that impressed me was just how nice and supportive, because he was a foreigner, but the people in Japan were so supportive of him doing that. So it's really fun. Anyway, since you've changed the video, let's get talking about our new anime. And I mean, you can't call this new, and we were dunking on remakes, especially made by Hollywood. But I am excited for Spice and Wolf, because Spice and Wolf has a good place in my heart.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And I really hope that this gets the chance to go beyond the original second season, because there's so much story left to tell.
Oh,
with
so
with Spice and Wolf. If you haven't yet come across this story, it follows the adventures of this traveling merchant in a pseudo medieval early modern Europe setting. Actually, no, I take that back. It would not be early modern because of their references to paganism. So this is actually firmly set in medieval, in a medieval style Europe, as he's basically making his way up to Norway, with this wolf goddess who got bound to the land, and they make an agreement that he will take her back home, and she will help him get rich along the way with her amazing abilities. And this right here, like, I am awful when it comes to I'm awful when it comes to economics. Economics to me is black magic. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And I've had tons of people try to explain economics to me. I'm like, say what? But when watching Spice and Wolf, they make economics make absolute sense. It's incredible. They even make the stock exchange make sense. Like, go figure on that.
It's a fun story, and like you said, there is a lot more that it can tell. Specifically, like the previous make of the show, they did the 2 seasons, and it only went to the 4th or 5th novel in the light novel series, when there's like 20 of them.
The 5th, I think.
Yeah, there's still a lot more story.
Are there 20? I thought it ended at 14.
I
thought it ended at 14 novels.
Oh, I can't remember. I know I have it, but it's buried behind a bunch of other books. So I think it's somewhere. It's somewhere up there for sure.
Anywhere between 14 to 15. Anywhere between 14 to 20 books.
I do have to share a really fun story that happened when I was watching it the one time, because I was watching it with my roommate, who's also part of Camille's harem, who's Nate, and we were just like sitting there watching it, having fun, and the ending credits started playing, and Nate's all singing along with it and super like happy with it because he just loves the song, and I'm like, this sounds so familiar, and I'm like, and I was talking to Nate about it, I'm like, this sounds really familiar, and he's like, yeah, because you've heard this song before. I'm like, no, it sounds like another song. I just couldn't figure it out until it clicked. And then the next time it played, I started singing Grandma Got Ran Over by a Reindeer, because it matches the background music of the ending credit song for Spice and Wolf so well. And it completely ruined it for Nate. He can't listen to that song anymore. I just ruined it for him.
Wait, the ending to the first season or the second season?
I think it's just the first season. I can't remember if it was the same on the second season.
Wait,
you'll have to go and look that up.
Now I have to look it on up. Oh, I will look it up later and then ruin it for myself.
I think it's hilarious. It's one of this is part of the reason why Spice and Wolf has like a good place in my heart. I mean, the story is great. I love it, but just I have fond memories of watching that with friends, and that's the big part of it. That's the really big part of it.
Yeah. Spice and Wolf was actually one of the first anime that I was introduced to after my mission. It was one of the ones that got me back into anime. Bleach is what got me back into anime. And then I was introduced to Samurai Champloo and Lone Star. And then after that came Spice and Wolf.
Okay.
All great shows to get back to really get back into anime.
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
All right, so which one do we want to do next?
Let's do Whisper Me a Love Song. This
All
one,
right, I have to upload that one, so hold on just a sec.
I gotta say, this one surprised me. just because I wasn't expecting to like it, and then I ended up actually liking it more because specifically the one character who's just over the top, energetic, and spastic and goofy, namely the red hair, like
redhead.
the shorter red haired girl. And like I was reading it, and I'm like, I need that kind of energy in my life. I feel so like lackluster and depressed a lot of the time. Like I need that energy to spice up my life and make it better. I mean, I guess
So
that's why I
I
watch
will
anime and read books to try and get some of that anyway.
to get some of that good positive energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll say this. I was actually a little bit confused while reading it at first because I was like, okay, because she keeps saying love, and she's like, I love you," and the other girl, the taller girl, who's this cool-headed guitarist in the band, and that band is just like, wait, you love me? Oh my gosh, I'm loved by this cute little girl. Oh, that's so cute. She actually makes me want to do love songs because that's one of her trademarks, is that the cool black-haired guitarist doesn't do love songs.
Mm-hmm.
Until the little redhead girl says, I want to hear your love song. I want to hear you play a love song. And and so thus begins the change, and she starts falling for her and everything. But then it becomes apparent by like chapter 5 that the little redheaded girl doesn't mean I love you exactly in the way of I love you romantically. It's like, oh, I love what you do. And today it made sense because while I was reading Ogami Tsumiki, the newest chapter, that exact same scenario is presented in that chapter, and there was a translator's note that was like an entire essay behind the vagueness of like and love in the Japanese language and Japanese culture. And I'm like, okay, now it makes absolute sense how you can say one word that can easily mean love, but it could also just mean I like. And so there's the miscommunication.
And a lot of people don't realize this about Japanese people, and I didn't realize it until like after I'd lived in Japan for maybe a year, is that even though a lot of Japanese people, they can be very very straight-faced, like on the outside, on the inside they can have like a lot of crazy emotions. They can have a lot of they can get really obsessed over things, and that's kind of tied into like their definitions of loving something. And so like that's one of the rules when it comes to like being famous over there necessarily, is you can't be dating, you can't be married, because you're suddenly not your own thing anymore. You're suddenly belong to everybody who sees your work. And if it's found out you are like married, you can get into serious trouble, and people get really mad over it. And so that kind of ties into this, not to the extent that, well, this story doesn't get to that extent anyway.
Yeah,
but it kind of ties.
But in any case, but in any case, like this right here, I believe is like the positive, energetic Yuri rom-com that I think that people actually do want to see. At least as far as I've read, nothing too heavy-handed. Even if Yuri's not exactly your forte, there is good positive energy and some fun character interactions. It's just also good friendships on the side.
Yeah,
that are entertaining. That were entertaining to read, and so that should hopefully also then be well translated on over into this anime and be very entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I was convinced when I first saw the artwork for this, because it's the same kind of character designs as my Team Rom-Com Snafu. I thought it was just a spin-off for the longest time. I just never sat down to read it, but I think it's just the same artist that worked on that anime worked on this one as well. It just looks so similar. All right, let's move on to our next one because we still have quite a few more to go. We
still got quite a few.
all...
We've got we don't want to be here all night. So let's do Go Go Loser Ranger. Oh boy, this is a nutty one. So
it is.
We have this. We have like this floating castle dimension thingy where the bad guys come on out to fight against the Power Rangers, who are the Dragon Guard, I believe, if I remember that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got one, and you have a henchman who hates being defeated because whenever they get killed, they go back to respawn. And he's like, I've had enough of dying and respawning. We are going to kill those Dragon Guard this time. And so, like, he goes AWOL to try to kill these guys. He gets left behind, and he decides he's going to infiltrate their organization and kill all of the Rangers from within. And it then starts becoming very surprising who might actually be on his side in his goal to kill all the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the basic premise, at least as of the first 5 chapters.
Right. I like the setup on this because it takes stuff. It takes a lot of what happens in like the Power Ranger stories, and then it subverts it and like changes it into something different. And I like to see stuff like that. I don't. On the other hand, though, I don't feel like this story is the best way to go about it necessarily.
I agree. It comes off the rails by the 4th chapter.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, when you so there's a character, so it's like, oh, who might be supporting the villain in his goals. There is one character you're like, okay, that's interesting, and you want to get to know more of that character's motivations for trying to kill the good guys. When we then get introduced already to another character who wants the same thing but for a different reason, and these people don't like each other, they're all working against each other, and immediately you get this feeling like this could get so convoluted so fast, and you don't know anyone other than the main character.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard to feel attached to anyone.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think with the way the story is, I think there's a possibility it can get a lot of like hype. There's going to be a lot of people who are fans of this. I just don't personally see it.
Mm-hmm. I think, and you've talked about this before, Scott, about like the culture around Super Sentai over in Japan. I feel like this is a story that if you are really into Super Sentai, if you know all of the different tropes, the iterations, the characters, that this is something that will definitely speak to you.
Yeah.
If you're not that deep into all the different iterations of the Power Rangers, this might not be your jam.
Yep. Though, then again, it might not be your jam as well because it's actively making the Power Rangers, at least in this world, the bad guys. So you kind of have to decide which side of that you want to be on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this will be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how it's received, and if it has any sort of staying power. Especially out here in the West. Real quick right here, RO83RT asks, what's your thought on name puns? I love them, but I get a lot of groans when I share some of mine for my own writing. I love the name puns.
Lars loves name puns, and he will actively ruin anything with name puns.
Yeah, you read the name puns that I gave you guys last night, right?
I did, and it made me groan out loud. I think they're funny. I do agree with that.
Yeah, they can be funny. They can also become very overbearing really fast. It depends a whole lot on the story that you're telling. For some of my more serious stories, I would only ever use a name pun for a quick bit of levity. For a funnier story, sure, maybe I would indulge in that long term. It's all about knowing how to. It's like a joke. It's about knowing your audience, and it's all about the timing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my response to punny names. All right, what's our next one? We've got Windbreaker. Let me quickly upload that because I couldn't put it into our stock of videos.
So I think this one has some fun character to it, but I also think this one's going to be fun because it's made by Cloverworks, and I love Cloverworks stuff. Just super bright, fun, like well done animation. And so I think this is going to be fun. And like I'd almost expect this to be made more by Mappa instead of Cloverworks, because there's a lot of like fun fights going on in this, because it's all about oh crap, what's the word?
Gangs?
Yeah, like high school gangs and delinquents. Yep, that's the word. Delinquents in Japan.
That's the
which
word.
There's I feel like ever since manga started getting released, there's been manga about delinquents in some form or another, and like they're always being released in some form or another, because you'll have stuff like Beelzebub, Cromartie High School, like those are all like delinquent kind of focused. Great Teacher Onizuka has a lot of delinquent stuff. It goes back to like the 80s and 70s too. I've seen some from those eras as well. And so it's a part of like the Japanese manga culture that sometimes like I don't understand, but you can also have some very great stories put into that as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like the incorporation of gang culture into like American works. Like most shows, books, or movies that try to like incorporate like what a gang is like, usually it usually falls kind of flat. But we love like it where it's or I should say it's inaccurate, and so it doesn't quite resonate with people quite as well. But it's something that we just kind of love. There's this fascination with those people who go beyond the law, have their found family, and do their own thing. There's always been an appeal to that. And I actually like where Windbreaker is going with this, where rather than having like delinquents fighting against everyone and who's going to be the strongest, that's how the protagonist is portrayed. He's like, I am the strongest delinquent ever, and I want to beat up people to prove it. But the place that he's going to, the delinquents who overthrew the previous regime are like, hey, if we're going to be violent, we're going to be violent towards other people for the good of our neighborhood. And it's like, I don't know if you have ever watched the Buttercream Gang. That kind of dates me. But this is like the violent version of the Buttercream Gang. You've never? Okay, that's maybe for the best. But
okay.
It's because the Buttercream Gang is about a gang that goes around doing good in their little community, who then have to go up against an actual gang. And they beat them with goodness. And that's kind of Windbreaker right here. It's all about the goodness, except in this case, their version of the Buttercream Gang will actually knock out your teeth in the name of being good.
So to answer the question why a lot of animes are like based in high school, it's because a lot of those stories are they're so specifically for high school age kids in Japan, and then it started to spread and get more popular, and so it ended up like going outside of Japan to like people of all different ages, and so it's not just for high school people anymore. but it's still a very common trope because that's where like anime and manga started.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and as long as people want to read that, it's going to be popular.
Mm-hmm.
And high school just resonates with a lot of people. So, for Japan, high school is seen as the equivalent to college, the last bit of freedom before entering the real world. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
Yep, that's true.
Especially with Japan's like working culture specifically, because once you enter the job, you're kind of stuck in the job. You don't really know people outside of the job. And then like you basically work until you die. It's and like you hear about people overworking themselves to death even. And so it's it's a callback to simpler times for a lot of people in Japan.
Yeah. Like Friday Night Lights. Well, let's move on to the next one, which also takes place in a high school, but goes off the rails real fast.
It kind of stopped being a high school thing after a certain point, though. So we're talking about
no, it does.
Yakuda family, which is so think Spy Family, but add more insanity to it.
Superhumans.
Yeah.
This so I feel. Oh, sorry. What was that?
I said this is very contrived, like all of the setup and like being the main character being pulled into everything that's going on, but it's also really funny at the same time.
Oh, it's hilarious. I really enjoyed reading it. So I'm looking forward to the adaptation right here. I feel like I know that not a whole lot of people have read Kimi wa Maido-sama, but I feel like this is what Kimi wa Maido-sama would be if that story leaned more into its supernatural elements. Because like it's so close to going off the rails bonkers, but it never does because it decides to focus more on the characters and the seriousness of an assassin coming out of that dark world. But it's so close to just going bonkers insane. And I feel like this one right here is basically that. Here's your assassins with their weird superpowers. They got to protect the head of the family, and things just. You're just like, okay, I'm along for the ride. You're either along for the ride or you get off the ride fast with this one. There's like no in between.
Yeah,
I feel.
And this one's also kind of confirming something that I was saying after, I think it was when the anime Buddy Daddies came out, was that it's that thing I was talking about earlier in this video as well, in this live stream as well. It's like you get something that's popular and then you suddenly get a whole ton of copycats based off of it. And so earlier I was talking about like Sarah J. Maas and like the whole romantasy genre, but this one's tied into like Spy Family came out, and now you're having a bunch of similar works coming out, and we saw that happen with Isekai, and the Isekai stuff's still going. I'd actually prefer if they switched over to like the Spy Family, like spy adventure stuff more often than anything now than the Isekai. I mean, at least until I get tired of the spy adventure stuff.
Yeah. What is the story of Crazy Spy Family? The story of Crazy Spy Family is that you got Mr. Redhead right here with the cool scar going on, who finds himself effectively adopted into this family of spies and assassins, and he's got to protect the head of the household. I'm not going to say any more than that, just because I feel like that ridiculously forced setup is part of the charm, and if that's explained to you too much ahead of time, it's very easy to check out without first getting a taste of what it really has to offer.
Mm-hmm. This one's another one.
That's what I will say.
Yeah, this one kind of fits in almost in the same kind of feel as Konosuba, because like it's all about the crazy, insane characters and the shenanigans they get into as like their personalities clash against each other. So that's what makes this one fun, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Bartender, Glass of God.
Bartender. Woo.
So,
all right, hold on a sec here.
This is
ad blocker decided to screw up my screen.
No.
Here we go.
This
Don't worry, everything's running smoothly.
Older manga, like I believe this one goes back to either early 2000s or even as far back as the 90s, even. And I think they have made either like a movie or a small like OVA for this series before, but now they're actually making a full-on anime for it. But it's very much it very much fits into kind of like the gourmet food kind of storyline, which has been getting more and more popular recently. I mean, I'm not just looking at Food Wars, even though Food Wars has issues, in my opinion.
Quintessential. It has issues. Yeah. I ate something tasty. Instant orgasm. Like,
no thanks. you know that like meme that people have when like they're watching some anime and it's just fine, but then you get to some like kind of sketchy kind of pseudo pornographic part of it and your parents walk in the door. Food Wars was what happened to me. That actually happened to me one day. And it was Food Wars that I was watching. And my mom's like,
"Oh no.
What are you watching?" And I'm like, "It wasn't like this just 20 seconds ago. It just came out of nowhere." And I'm like, "Are you
I have no idea.
Serious?" Oh man. I couldn't keep watching Food Wars after that point. I really couldn't. I was just too embarrassed. Oh man.
Yeah. But even when alone, Food Wars gives me secondhand embarrassment. But bartender, however, is completely different. It is very chill,
and
I feel like so here's the weird thing. Like, I feel like I could give the show on over to my mom, and she would get way more out of it because she's been part of the drinking culture, and I'm not. I don't understand what makes a good cocktail. I don't understand what goes into mixing a good drink. And the manga goes deep into recognizing various alcohols, what can be mixed. Like, for someone who can't handle their alcohol, what is a drink that you can mix that they can enjoy without becoming incredibly intoxicated? That's what the story all is. It's kind of like a love letter to drinking culture without the obscenity that we normally associate with consuming lots of alcohol.
Yeah. So I think this will be a fun one. Might be a good one to just binge at some point when you're looking for something that's not so heavy, not so like goofy. You just want something to have in the background. I think this would be a good one for that.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's move on to our next one. And I personally describe this one as this is a story about Japanese John Wick who is failing so bad at retiring. He's trying to retire, at least temporarily, and just doesn't know how to stop killing people. Even though he knows if he kills people, he gets in trouble. That is the entire point. You've got the Fable, this goofy guy laughing in the backseat of the car, who ends up killing too many people, and his boss tells him to lay low for a year and not kill anybody so they can, so like the authorities stop looking for him basically. And so he's supposed to move clear across the country of Japan. The lady there, she's his like getaway driver, and she's the one that's trying to keep him on the straight and narrow, and he just struggles so hard at
Oh yeah.
It's a comedy, but it's also very serious because like he sees something that like bugs him. He's like, oh, I'm just gonna kill this guy, and like the lady's just like, no, remember why we're here. We're not supposed to do that. He's like, but they were pissing me off.
Yeah, the car car taggers. I love what he does to them. And the one Yakuza guy who's like supposed to effectively be like their handler / landlord while they're laying low. That guy's such a moron.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I want him to get shot. Like there's a really hilarious scene at one point with the Yakuza guy who's all like, hey man, I heard that you can kill people with one shot. I want you to like do this weird impossible shot. And and the woman's like, no, we're supposed to be underground, not doing this. And the assassin's like, sure, I'll do it. and totally owns the guy, but in a way that you're not expecting.
Right.
And yeah. I feel like there's also, I mean, this story I believe does predate the series Archer, but I feel like there's a smacking of Archer in this as well because the guy is so immature.
Yes.
And you're like, how did you survive this long, being the immature idiot that you are? And he's just great at killing. That's the one thing he's good for. Everything else he sucks at. Yeah, I think this is another one to binge. I don't know if I'll want to watch this one from week to week, but yeah. I think binging it would be fun.
I agree. All right, and
what's our next?
We're finally over halfway through the list. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, we're actually getting close to towards the end.
We're getting into Isekai story. Buckle up, people. We're gonna just try to get through these as fast as possible.
Which one am I showing?
Remonster.
Okay, hold on a sec. Let me get Remonster on up.
So we've already talked about like the issues that that time I got reincarnated as the slime has. This is where I get the idea for those issues. Because that's the entire thing. This story is all about the power scaling and moving on to the next big fight. And that's about all there is to it. I mean, like, you've got the character who is reincarnated as a goblin, but he keeps the OP power that he had in his previous life. And that OP power allows him to gain the abilities of whatever he eats. And that just keeps stacking and stacking and stacking, and he keeps fighting bigger and bigger and bigger things. And like, it has the community growth thing as everybody around him like grows and like evolves into bigger and bigger creatures as well. But again, the whole point of the group is just to fight more things.
Mm-hmm.
It honestly becomes...
I had a very hard time
reading
this.
I remember reading a good 50, 60 chapters in a while back. And at a certain point, it becomes, at least in my opinion, it becomes monotonous because at that point, it's just a list of this guy fought this thing, the main character fought that thing and got this ability. And like there's full on like multiple page spreads where it's just listing off all of the character's abilities. And I'm like, I don't need to know all this. You just tell me this once and I'm good kind of idea. And then like you only bring it back up again if there's some new way to apply it or like combine it with another ability. I don't need to hear the same thing over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So this one kind of drives me.
Yeah, and I just I'll be honest, the main character sucks.
Yeah.
It occurred to me while reading this.
He's an
that,
asshole, but not a fun asshole like other stories.
Yeah. Yeah, it occurred to me that creating like the angsty edgelord asshole protagonist is effectively what it is the fallback if you're unable to write a bland protagonist and if you're not skilled enough to write an interesting protagonist.
Exactly.
And so this story is all like, ooh, it will be interesting because of the power-ups and the fights. The fights bored me, and I wasn't interested in the powers.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yay, more generic. I've already seen all of this. And you couldn't even, and it's okay if you have like similar powers or that you have the angsty edgelord eating things and gaining powers. Like, at least just please do something slightly unique with it. Please. But no, we don't get any of that.
Nope. None of it at all. Let's move on to our next one.
Yay, next one. Hold on. Here, let me pull it on up. The New Gate.
The New Gate. So I like the New Gate. I think it's fun, but I like reading a lot of isekai. I mean, I make fun of it, but because it's fun to make fun of it. But I also like reading a lot of isekai just because I do actually like the genre, but I also like to dunk on the genre a lot too. And this one's I like the story, I like the characters, but it also is very middle of the road for isekai nowadays. And I feel like it's one of those that like if it was released possibly 5 or 6 years ago, it would be more memorable than it is.
Yeah, and actually, let me quote ISO. Let me see if I can find it again. I believe it was ISO who wrote it. Okay. ISO, I think you had. Yes. Okay. Here we go. Here are the two quotes from ISO that fit the New Gate perfectly. And I'm going to do a little bit of a voice here. Let me just open up the stat window for some plot development because that's totally normal. Instantly, that happens like in chapter 1.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, that just happened. And then, whoa, I'm at level 999. That's so remarkable.
Yep. That's
basically it.
Now, ISO, you have permission to roast Lars's voice in chat. Please do.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, you'll get to hear that voice again for Saturday's video.
Oh no. Oh no. Anyway. So I don't know. Like,
yeah,
I like how this leans into the video game aspect of it, instead of just making it an ISO. I love it. I love it.
Hey guys, the perfect voice.
I like how it leans more into the video game aspect instead of just pretending like, oh, this is the isekai fantasy world, and the video game element is just a natural part of it. I'm like, no, this used to be a video game and now has become real somehow, and the main character is that's one of the mysteries they're having to figure out. But
yeah.
Like, it's not really new. We also saw that same thing happen in Solo Leveling. Kind of, well, almost the opposite direction in Solo Leveling, but it's a similar idea, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. And
So
I agree with you, Scott. If this were to be real, like looking at the animation and at least like looking at some of the story already through the manga, I agree. If this had been released, like let's say after, like right after SAO, this would have absolutely caught the bug. It would be incredibly popular. Everyone would be talking about it. And despite what good qualities there are to the story, it probably will be largely forgotten because most people will just write it off as just more isekai drivel.
Mm-hmm.
Like I definitely didn't hate reading this one. It was just like, oh yeah, all the tropes, yay!
Right. I mean, and it is kind of a contemporary to like Sword Art Online. The original novel for this was published in 2013, not too long after SAO. So possibly could have gotten an anime sooner than this, but now this is when we're getting it.
Yeah.
Good years, 10 years later.
I feel, yeah, 10 years later. My biggest gripe with what I've read so far is that there is a very interesting story to be had, and it's encumbered with his insane abilities.
Yeah.
Like for instance, like meeting the elf. Ooh, cool, sexy elf. And there's a little sweet story there and everything, and it's like it's the part of like a larger quest and a greater storyline that's going to be spun out over time. But the thing is that the adventure of discovering who she is, like a little slight spoiler, only he can see that she's an elf. Everyone else sees a cat girl.
Yep.
And I think it would have been way more interesting to play that out a little bit. Here's a cat girl, and then like 2-3 chapters later on, begin to realize there's something interesting about this cat girl. Like something's not lining up, and then finding out she's a cursed elf.
Mm-hmm.
Like make the character think, make the main character observe, make the main character act, rather than the world reacting to him being OP.
Mm-hmm. I agree. All right, let's move on to a character who has no choice but to act because the world hates him. We're going on to, I think, is probably going to be one of the bigger ones this next season, which is Kaiju number 8.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Lars is excited.
This is definitely going to be a favorite. I will be honest. I had not read any of Kaiju number 8 until preparing for this, and I am sad with myself that I've not kept up with that. I did not get into the series sooner, because it's fun.
It is a fun one, and this is another one that relies on like the tropes for like an already established not a series, but like a genre, subgenre. Because like we're talking about Go Go Loser Ranger earlier, that dips into like the Power Ranger, the Super Sentai genre. This dives right into the kaiju, the Godzilla, King Kong kind of genre, and takes an interesting look at it, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And one things I like about it, and I kind of wish that the story spent a little bit more time with it, but whatever. I think actually that the anime is going to probably build on that just a little bit more in the first episode or so, just to like more firmly establish how horrifying the kaiju are, but that our main character is part of the cleanup crew. Mm-hmm. He is the guy who gets sent in with the others to clean up all of the wreckage and the monster guts that are left over from humanity killing these kaiju. And it's nasty, and it's horrifying. And like you get for like in the first chapter, like how they have to like put in nose plugs in order to not get sick from the immediately rotting meat. they're even told, don't stare at the creature for too long, otherwise it's going to start messing with your head.
Mm-hmm.
And how they're given ridiculous deadlines of like, hey, we have to like strip down this 6-story tall corpse and move it somewhere else, so that way the construction crews can start rebuilding people's homes.
Yeah,
like it's insanely grueling and disgusting.
You know what this reminds me of that I wasn't thinking of before now, but it fits. This reminds me so much of parts of the Pacific Rim movie. Except there's no like giant robots that everybody's like fighting with like guns and like other weapons, with like the huge size difference. And then you've got the main character who becomes this like miniature kaiju with like superpowers and can still control himself. It isn't like a crazy monster like all these other creatures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this I think will be I think that this one will definitely be a favorite from the season, both from the people who've already read the manga and for people who are just like looking for a good action story and for something that isn't it isn't isekai.
Yeah,
and it isn't spies. Like it's nice to go back to a kaiju story. Especially, I think after Godzilla -1 came in and wowed people, and we now have got Godzilla versus Kong coming out. I feel like there will be an appetite for kaiju stories.
I just hope they take this. The next kaiju one we see is Kaiju Girls Caramelize. Because that would be a blast in anime form. Because that's the story of a girl who turns into Godzilla anytime her like heart starts beating too fast because she's in love or embarrassed by something.
I love that.
So much fun. Because like of course she has a crush on this one guy. And like every time she tries to get close to the guy, she turns into Godzilla.
Oh my gosh, I need to have a look at that one. There is a really great at least I think it's really great manga that unfortunately to my knowledge just gets updated so irregularly that it really hasn't caught on. And it's about this schoolgirl who has the ability to grow to be like I think they say like 70 meters tall, something like that, like ridiculously sized. I wish she can like punch kaiju and wrestle them personally, and it's her story of like trying to be like just your regular schoolgirl, balancing her job of also being a kaiju slayer. And she wears this mask when she fights, and she's given, and one of her classmates is actually her manager, who is always trying to give her cover stories for when she has to go fight a monster, so that way no one's asking, hey, why do you always disappear when a monster shows up? Everybody now looking that one up?
I am looking that one up, actually.
Oh. Yeah, this is going to be a good one. Kaiju number 8.
Well, nope, I have not found the right one. Sorry.
Yeah, I found it yet. Yeah, I gotta go hunting for it. It's been I think over a year since I last saw an update for it. So I don't even know if it's still running, or it could be like, or it could be like Beast number 6, where it is still going, but no one in stateside has any idea what's happening to it. All right, let's see here. We got.
Is it Gigant or Gigant? I'll send it to you later.
Okay, yeah. Ooh. So actually, we are at the end of the list. So that means actually the last one. I'm going to pop the last one in right here, which was not originally on our list.
Uh-oh, what'd you throw in?
But I was like, I I'm definitely going to talk about this one. We got mysteries, maidens, and mysterious disappearances.
Oh, okay.
And I did not think until I saw the most recent trailer, which just premiered for it. I did not think that we were going to get as far as it seems to imply, which is actually really far into the manga. There's a reference to the King of Cats in the trailer, and I was like, oh, I was not expecting that, because that's really far into the story. So, might be a shame, because it could mean that this is just going to be a one and done show rather than getting 2 seasons. But who knows? This is one that I do intend to review as it comes out weekly, and it's actually coming out later than nearly all of the other anime this season. It comes out a week after all the others get started. I don't know exactly why that is, but yeah, this is one that I'm definitely looking forward to, and not just for the opie. Scott, get your head out of the gutter.
You're the one with the head in the gutter, okay?
I am the one with his head in the gutter. Yeah, I actually don't think that the anime is going to get as explicit as the manga does.
So what's the story?
If it does, I will actually be shocked. Just again based off of how it's being marketed, because they are definitely not showing the main character in all of her compromising situations like she is in the manga. But for those who don't know what the story is for this one right here, and actually one of the reasons why I do like this is because our main character, the gal right here, she is an aspiring author. In fact, she actually has published a book, but she's never been able to get past that first book because, well, for actually a variety of reasons. There's an entire dissertation to do on just 2 pages from the manga alone because of how she is treated. Because when she first publishes, she's in high school. And so people are like, oh, she could be a genius. But her next book is not well received by her editor and gets torn to pieces. And so she's unable to get that book published, and she begins to feel like she's not good enough. And time begins slipping by, and as she gets older, as she approaches 30 years old, no one wants her books anymore because she's old. You're not new, you're not fresh. Oh, your story ideas, like you can't appeal to people. Or maybe you're trying to do too much with this story, or maybe you're not doing enough with your story. And so she just gets torn to shreds again and again and again by editors and publishers. And so where we get to meet her is at the end of that journey. And she's now someone who she once loved to write, but now all she does is she loves to read. And so she works at a bookstore, which doesn't pay very well. She lives in a squalid apartment, and spends all of her extra cash that she should be saving up on buying books. And so she's in this horrible apartment surrounded by books, stuck in life. Her dream is crushed, and the kid that she works with has a crush on her. And which is kind of good for her, because then when she gets a cursed book that initiates the story, he then follows up with her, and he happens to know how to deal with curses. In fact, he and his sister are collecting curses, and that then ties into this whole story of that these siblings begin helping her in her various journeys of meeting all these different ghosts and monsters, trying to keep her safe while also trying to harvest all of this dark energy and curses to make a deal with some sort of monster that exists at the heart of Japanese folklore. And that's a summary of the story right there. And I actually enjoy it. Like the compromising stuff aside, there's actually a whole lot of really interesting stuff to dig your teeth into. and I've been trying to keep up with the manga, even though it's not been translated into English up to a certain point. I'm like, okay, the raws are released. I get the raws, translate them on Google, and then just start making conjecture. Because there's some intense stuff, but it's a fun story. It gets if they adapt this one faithfully, there is so much that happens already in the first couple of chapters or the first couple of episodes that just seems like fluff, but is actually all set up for crazy shenanigans that happen later on. There's a lot going on, and we'll just have to see how well it's adapted, because depending on how much they put in, we'll let you know if this is a one and done or if they do intend to actually make a series beyond just one season. So
sounds good.
Yeah, that's my last recommendation.
And this certainly isn't all of the anime, certainly not all of the anime that's coming out this season. There's a ton. We just keep it to a certain amount so this doesn't drag on all night long. I don't know, maybe if we get enough support, we can do like a 12-hour anime stream, but let's think about that a lot further in the future. My voice,
yeah, that's when we have like 100,000 subscribers.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, but this has been fun. It's always really fun just sitting and talking, and I actually really love that we're able to do this like as a live stream, have like that interaction with people. It's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I appreciate the support for you wanting a 12-hour stream. I'm not ready for that quite yet, but possibly we might do that in the future.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we do a 12-hour stream, we are watching Saturday morning cartoons for like 4 hours of that, and then trying not to get pulled down from YouTube. But yeah,
the key is just to watch
kind of to wrap
5-second increments, and then switch to the next one, and then just keep switching.
Yep. Yeah.
Eventually, at the end of the 4 hours, we'll have watched like 5 different episodes.
Exactly. So Scott, before we end, what are a couple of the anime that you're like, yeah, definitely this is one that I want to. These are like a handful that I'm definitely going to watch.
Spice and Wolf, Windbreaker, and I think the Fable are the ones I'm most interested in this season. All the other ones are good, but I think a lot of these I'm gonna want to binge later on. Wait until they're all released.
Yeah.
And then like sit down and binge it when I've got a day off and want to relax.
Mm-hmm. Let's hear. For the returning, I definitely want to watch Konosuba, Demon Slayer, and My Hero Academia. Those are definitely on my want to watch. Spice and Wolf, definitely. I really, really want to see what they do with Spice and Wolf, especially because it's all the trailer already makes it clear that they're going to be way more faithful to the manga than the original one was, and I like that. I'm really interested in seeing how that goes. Mission Yozakura Family, because I need that insanity in my life. The Fable, I definitely want to watch The Fable and get a good laugh. Kaiju number 8 and Mysteries, Maidens, and Mysterious Disappearances.
Okay,
those are going to be. Those are going to be the ones that I focus on. I think I'll end up watching some of the new Gate, just like kind of like as like, hey, you know what? I just need like some fun fantasy fluff that's like playing while I'm working on something, and so I'll set that up so that way I can glance at it and watch it as I'm working on something. I feel like that's where I'm going to find fulfillment with that one.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
it's a new season. We're gonna have some fun with it. We're certainly gonna post a few videos here and there on what's gonna be coming out. So look forward to that.
oh yeah, most definitely. Like I said, I'm going to do. I think I'll definitely do weekly reviews for mysteries, but I'm debating. I might do one as well for Spice and Wolf, where I might do like wrap up videos for the different arcs of Spice and Wolf, because Spice and Wolf definitely is a slow burn uh, for it as far as like the pacing goes, or at least if they do it the way that it's written, it's a slower story. So we'll see, but yeah, there's a lot of good stuff, and look forward to more stuff coming out from us. And before we leave right here, I just want to say I hope that you guys will check out the video that I have set to release on Saturday, and definitely give me your honest feedback on it. And what I'll just say is this: is that even if Elden Ring isn't precisely your jam, there's more to this particular video than just Elden Ring. It is going. It's a good, like we've had some fun riffing on isekai right here, and this is a very different take on writing commentary than anything that we've done so far here on this channel. And so I definitely want people's feedback on if they think that a story that acts as critique and writing insight actually works as a concept for you, or if that's just kind of like oh Lars, that was a fun experiment right there, but nah, stick to what you do. So definitely some feedback would be very much appreciated, so that way I know if I do dedicate more time to this story idea, because there's a full mini series behind this, but it will consume a ton of time, and if it's not something that people are interested in, then I need to make sure not to spend a whole bunch of time on something that isn't going to be good for our viewers, or it'll be entertaining and engaging and informative for our viewers. So feedback will be much appreciated on Saturday.
I'm looking forward
so I can explain all the lore of Elden Ring. I think that tells you all you need to know. I hope then that you're ready for the DLC, which is going to ruin all of our understandings of what's actually happening in the story.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it.
I also write. I really wanted to be able to structure a story in the style of Miyazaki. Hayao Miyazaki, or I know who you're talking about. You're talking about the director behind Elden Ring. Whew. Dark fantasy is hard. It's a hard thing to write. I'll just say that one of these days I will talk about it at length why writing dark fantasy is so hard, but it is.
All right, shall we sign off?
All right, let's sign off here. Thanks again to everyone who's been here with us, whether you've been here since the beginning or just popped on in. It's been great having you guys here with us and in the chat. And lastly, to that request, could we do a video about vampires in Tsukihime? I'm not going to say yes or no 100% either way. That'll take some time to read into it and see what we can take out, if there is a video that we could do there. So I'm not going to say yes or no right here. There'll just be something for us to check out.
What could be fun there is just kind
of... What was that, Scott?
What could be fun there is just like use it as like not just Tsukihime, but like talk about vampires in general and like how different people change it to become unique in their own right. So do like a whole video on that, but use the vampires and Tsukihime as like one of the top examples. So maybe
I like that idea, Scott. Yeah, so that's definitely something that we can look into. I'm just not going to promise anything anytime soon, but we'll have a look into it. But yeah, so thank you guys so much. If you haven't done so already, a like always helps us on out. Or you can check out the books that we've published. Links for them are always in the video description. But otherwise, y'all, thank you so much for being with us for 2.5 hours. Oh my gosh. Time flies. And until the next video, y'all, choose.
Okini.